Hello, gamers. Welcome back to another episode of the Cuddlepunk podcast. I am your host, the mastermind, Veronica Vext. With me today, this is the most insane. I'm flipping over my words so much. That's the whole problem here, is because I am so excited about today's guest. You've heard her in the band SeeYouSpaceCowboy. Their new album, Coup de Grâce, came out earlier this year. The next chance that you have to see her is going to be in October at the House of Blues in Las Vegas for the 15-year anniversary Pure Noise Records show with Knocked Loose and Spanish Love Songs. Connie Sgarbossa from SeeYouSpaceCowboy is here. Connie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Absolutely wonderful to hear it. So you just wrapped up the European tour. You've been touring constantly this year. I've seen you twice this year, once in Indiana with A Better Lovers, and then on the headliner tour that you guys just did in August. When you're opening for a band like Better Lovers, which yes, it's their first album's about to come out. They put out the EP last year, but it's Dillinger Escape Plan and Every Time I Die. There is a fan base that's going to be going in there. So how does that environment and that fan base differ from, say, your headlining tour?
I mean, since they are older quotes, whatever, legacy bands, like it's definitely, not as much of like a moving like rowdy crowd as like our shows. But like for that tour, like since it was like smaller rooms and stuff like that, we had a lot of like our fans coming through and kind of I think pissing off some like the older old head folks.
When I saw you in Indianapolis with Better Lovers, it was me and my friends Maud, Dean, and Nico from the band Splitjaw. And with you, Maud, and I in that room, we're pretty sure that we quadrupled the trans population of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah, it's weird because it's a support tour with bands that like we're influenced by, of course, but like not necessarily like a fan base that we're like super in line with at this point in like the band. So it's like it's always interesting. It's like when you're doing like big support tours where you're playing like that like multiple thousand cap rooms and shit like that, like it's a bit different because you're just like so disconnected. But a lot of those shows were super intimate and stuff. So like it's a support tour that like even though we're like direct support and blah blah blah, like we still get to like have like what somewhat resembles like what a cowboy headline would be like. People like stage diving and shit like that.
I had Greg Puciato jump on top of me at that show. It got, at least in Indiana, it did get rowdy. That show that I saw you guys at in Indiana and Indianapolis, that was the day before Coup de Grace, your album from this year, released. When you are on a tour and you know that the next thing that you're putting out is going to be releasing while you're on that tour, do you have like two set lists, like one for before the album comes out and one for after the album comes out, or do you mostly just stick with what you've had for that tour going forward? Because also it was the first night of that tour, I'm pretty sure.
Oh no, we like basically were like we're just gonna like play one set list and like fuck it, like because like it would be so much work to be like, oh, we can't play certain songs yet, so we just literally were like, we don't care, like we'll play songs from the album and just like do it. It comes out like that day or whatever.
I was listening to On Wednesdays We Wear Black to get ready for this episode. It would the episode that you were on there. Shout out to On Wednesdays We Wear Black. They're wildly entertaining.
Yeah, that was a fun one for sure.
I felt so seen when you referred to yourself as a T-girl tomboy. Because as somebody who's like only like a year into this shit, I also feel very like tomboyish, but I've like made peace with the fact that like, yeah, that's just kind of how it is. And I like it's appreciated to have like T-girl tomboy solidarity.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's something that's not really talked about a lot because there's like such like a just the main representation of like trans women is always like or you're like feminine or you're like a Dylan Mulvaney or you're like a Hunter Schafer and like you're like X, Y, or Z and like I don't know, that just like doesn't fit with like what I would ever do in like my life with like what I'm interested in, what I like to do and like who I am as a person. So it's like something that like prominently is part of who I am and it will like never change.
I feel like people don't get that when people go into like different, like more of the like gender that they associated with when they transition, it's probably because they wanted to do those vibes when they were the gender that they were assigned at birth, but like they weren't able to express it. Like you can still enjoy like all the same things and dress the exact same way after you transition.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, it's like they transition because they very much like want to like fit into the like stereotype or that like kind of caricature of femininity, but like I don't know, the biggest thing for me, and like it's not to say that I didn't try when I first came out. Like there was definitely an era of my life where I was like wearing dresses and like makeup and shit like that, and when I was like younger, like 19, 20. But as like I, you know, explored that journey, and especially as like cowboy started and became a big part of my life, and like hardcore became a big part of my life again, it just I just realized that like I didn't need to do that, and it didn't feel right in any regard to be like that.
I think with the interviews that I've heard you on, you've talked about like hardcore re-entering your life in a certain way. Was there a time where you like kind of disassociated with hardcore and metalcore and all that?
There was a time where I wasn't like as involved in hardcore. I kind of like was more in like on like the screamo side of things, and like and more like there was like a I had like a clubbing kind of party phase in my life too. I mean, it's not that like hardcore was never like not important to me, 'cause it always has been. It's been part of my life since I was like 10 years old. But there's definitely been like eras of my life where like I moved to San Francisco and I just kind of was exploring queerness and listening to a lot of screamo bands and shit like that. And then I was like really into like partying for a bit, but then like as Cowboy kind of picked up and like I like reintegrated into like the modern scene, it became like kind of like a big, huge pivot point for my life, like it was when I first discovered like Black Flag and Dead Kennedys and Surgerix when I was a kid.
It feels like you guys were like too big to be stunted by lockdown and everything, because you talk about like when Cowboy had first started taking off. I remember that was like around like 2018, 2019, and then there were a lot of bands that were like popping off then that didn't quite make it through the lockdown. Like that level of popularity did not stay for them, but I feel like you guys only grew as lockdown was happening.
Well, we kind of used lockdown as like a time to like configure and like figure what we wanted to do with the cowboy moving forward, because going into like lockdown, like we had lost like a majority of our members. I think that at a point it was basically just me and Ethan, because like people kind of like used it as a chance to be like it's not what we want to do, blah blah blah. We'd released correlations between interest and exit wounds. We'd already shifted our sound as a band in like a major way. um and then we kind of used lockdown as a time to bring back a lot of the OG members and be like, hey, you want to do this again? Like, and then figure out what we wanted to do. So like we just used our time wisely. We did the collab with If It At First. That's like an experiment into like being a melodic band. We like and then like we refined and like made the Romance of Affliction during lockdown as well. Um it was like kind of just it almost was like a blessing, because like I don't know if we would have been able to like get Cowboy together in like the way that it is now if we didn't have the time where we like weren't able to be touring, because like Cowboys jumped from being like a grindy band to like being like a very like emotional like metalcore band to like being post-hardcore band, to being like whatever we are like now. And like we really needed that like year and a half or whatever to like figure that out.
You definitely would not be hearing those like dance punky like block party bass lines and guitar lines on any of the other records.
No, because like the way that like Cowboy operates is like we basically just do whatever we want whenever we want. So like when we first started, like the whole like ethos of the band when it first started was just like nobody was really doing this like revival grind breakdown bullshit like sass thing like that, like in 2000, like in December of 2016 when we first started, like there was like nobody really doing that. There was like the Cambodian Heat and Gift from God, I think, were the only bands. Letters to Catalonia was playing breakdowns and screamo. But like we kind of like took that and ran with it, and then like when it came time for like correlations between entrance and exit wounds, it was like we're kind of bored of that. Like we want to make like this like darker like metalcore record. And then when it, you know, when everybody left and like the main people pushing that forward left, and it was just kind of like Ethan and me, and then like we're bringing in like Taylor, who we're like, oh Taylor, you know how to sing, like we can do melodic shit. And then we brought in like Timmy again, and we're like, okay, like we brought in Timmy to help write for Coup de Grâce, and we're like, okay, well Timmy is as an indie rock guy, like brings an interesting flavor to like what we can do, because it's just like that, like the notion of like each like band member that we kind of added and brought back and like been able to do things with is like always Cowboy is exactly what we want it to be, and only what we want it to be. There's not a sound. Cowboy doesn't sound like anything to me. Um, you can't, if you like pinpoint a band that Cowboy sounds like, you're only like 1/5 correct at all times, no matter what. You could say it sounds like Emery, but you're only like 1/5 right, because Emery didn't have Blood Brothers parts, or like put like indie rock dance shit in their records, you know.
You have like truly made something completely unique in not just the world of metalcore or the world of metal, but like the world of heavy music and music in general. It reminds me so much of friend of the show and personal friend James from Blind Equation. Like that, seeing you guys pick him up for the last tour that you guys did in the States, like that was the coolest shit ever for like everybody in Chicago.
It is that like kind of notion of like, yeah, a band like Blind Equation like does their own thing, and like yeah, that like resonates with like us. You know, we have a lot of like contemporaries in the scene, but I like to think that like Cowboy like is like stands out as like this like weird kind of amalgamation that's like surprising that we've like made it like this far in that regard, like in the ways that like we write music and the way that we approach like what the band is. I don't know. It's like it's just an interesting like experiment to me, and like an uncompromising thing. It was like we could like be a lot bigger and more successful, and like, you know, we could be making like money and shit if like we were like, you know, willing to like tweak things, like take the sass vocals out, or like, you know, write more straightforward shit, or like stop throwing everything that we like in a blender and like trying to make it work. But
But then you wouldn't have made the best heavy album of 2024.
well, thank you. And like it also just wouldn't be worth doing to me at that point. There'd be no point. It'd just be a job, and like I don't really care to like make music a job.
It's not just the music side of See You Space Cowboy that has been constantly evolving. It's the like visual side of everything, because you are like a visual designer for bands.
Mhm.
That's your day job and everything. You were selling the like the fashion stuff and the prints at all the shows. Actually, I have my print that I got in Chicago right here.
It's awesome.
I have not hung this up yet because I need a frame for it. Like seeing the aesthetics change as much as the music itself. Like I remember showing you to somebody like before Coup de Grace had come out, and I was playing like the first video that you guys had put out, and I realized that I like kind of needed to do a better dive into you guys, because I don't know if I had fallen off or whatever, or if I hadn't noticed the progression. I realized like I can't explain this band. I need to reassess what's happening here just from that like first video.
I mean, it was visuals were a huge part of like this album was a visual idea first. Like before there was any idea of what we were gonna do sonically, for me, it was like I wanted to like imbue something with my love of like Moulin Rouge and like noir aesthetics and like old films, and the kind of like ideas of like back room, like prohibition era clubs. And that was, it was like this visual idea I had first, and then before I ever like talked to like Timmy about like what we could do sonically, and that's like kind of where it was like, oh, we'll do like a theatrical thing, like a Panic at the Disco-esque thing minus the circus. We'll do it like more grounded. We'll do this gritty, sexual, dark kind of like Lover's Tale, and take the idea of like Frank Miller's Sin City graphic novels of like just tales of like this city that like is its own character.
I've just come up with the perfect way to describe Coup de Grace as an album. Imagine if instead of Jay-Z, Boz Lerman got Panic at the Disco to soundtrack his Great Gatsby remake.
I mean, yeah, like that kind of like exuberance and like excess, but like applied to like dingy dark alleys and like a more like noir setting was like kind of like this thing. I don't know, I just love the idea. Like, and that's like why the lyrics revolve so much around like the city, the characters, the lovers, the fire. Like I just wanted to like I like thought a lot about like Paris is Burning, like just the title of it. It always has struck me as much. It's a great film as well, but it's really struck me as this. What is the most like just cathartic show of love, and it would be like two people fucking in bed even as the city burns around them, and like that's kind of like something that like pinpointed into my head as like a major like driving force for like this record.
Hey gamers, as usual, today's episode is brought to you by the patrons on the Cuddlepunk Podcast Patreon. If you want to help support the show for either $3 or $5 a month, you can head on over to patreon.com/thecuddlepunk podcast. $3 a month will get you early access to every episode of the Cuddlepunk Podcast. And for $5 a month, you get early access to the episodes, as well as your name featured in every episode of the Cuddlepunk Podcast. Thank you so much to Noel Rosen, Michael Gallucci, Andy Brummel, Julia Broman, Jack, Susan, and Gail Mack. If I mispronounced your name, please let me know, and I will change it for the next episode. That's patreon.com/thecuddlepunk podcast. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the episode.
It almost seems perfect that See You Space Cowboy would be the name of the band, because obviously it's a reference to Cowboy Bebop, but your sound is kind of, it reminds me of anime in a way, because anime is so vast and it's pulling from so many different things and it's showing so many different things, and that's how I feel whenever I'm going
Yeah, I
through your
mean,
guys' discography.
Cowboy Bebop is a sci-fi western with noir elements and jazz. You know, it's a crazy combination that like is why it's like one of the greatest animes ever made, and like why it helped bring anime to the West in general. All right, so I guess yeah, kind of that's not like it's not what I was thinking when we took that name, but I guess it fits.
It fits really well, I think. The second time that I saw you guys was here in Chicago at Bottom Lounge with the Callous Cowboys and Omerta and with Stateside and Blind Equation. First of all, I did want to ask this. I had seen on your Instagram, and also you announced it while right before performing the song, that this is the final tour that you guys are going to be playing late December on.
Mhm.
We don't have to get into the story of the song. Like, everybody who knows this band is going to be like, knows what the story of the song is, and if they don't, they can look it up themselves. But I did want to ask how it's felt to know that you're performing these songs for the last time, and how the crowd has responded to knowing that you're performing late December for the last time.
For me personally, it's like really cathartic. When I made the decision to do it, it's because like I right before this headliner, I had like gone sober for a month, and I was really trying to like I had figured things out, and like I had like gone on like medication for like my bipolar for the first time, and I like kind of like realized that like through like therapy that like a big part of me was like still holding on to like that tragedy in my life, and like that song in particular is a part of it. So like there was like a big shift that I decided to take, whereas like it's been almost 6 years. It's like time to like let go. So I texted the group chat and I'm like, hey, this is the last tour that we're ever gonna play late December. And like, you know, I put away her beanie, and I haven't worn it since, because I used to wear it every single day. So it's like been a really cathartic and like nice thing to like do that. And like for like shows, like to the people that that song means a lot to, it was really a cathartic experience for them too, especially like at Chain Reaction, where like, you know, there were like people at that show who knew her. So it was like kind of like a really like a painful but like almost like reassuring cathartic thing to like kind of like move along and say that like, you know, 6 years of mourning was enough. It's like, okay, it's okay to like let go.
I'm very happy that you were able to achieve this level of catharsis, because, and just be able to be as like well and as healthy as you can be. And if it means sacrificing that song, I think we'll all take that trade for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like ultimately, like it's, you know, if you really believe that like these songs like expressions of like us as people and like our emotions and stuff, then like realistically a band should only be playing the songs that they feel like they need to play. And like that's just a song I don't feel like I need to play anymore.
Absolutely. That just bill in general, I don't think you could have picked a more perfect group of 4 acts to open for you at that show, at least, because I know Blind Equation wasn't on every show, but those 4 acts, I feel like if you combine them, you do get at least, like, maybe even just 75% of what See You Space Cowboy brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's when we were like assembling like this like lineup, it definitely was like Callous Cowboys is a band that's like I like are like zany, like the zanier version of us, like in my opinion. Like I've known that band and for like so long, and like I did art for them like way back in the day, and like and then like adding in like Omerta like as like a band that also just like does whatever the fuck they want and is like crafted their own like unique sound in like a really cool way. It like felt it was really cool to like be able to bring out bands like that because like you don't really get to pick the bands you tour with unless you're headlining. So when we were like doing it, we really wanted to like have like these unique cool bands and then like stateside as like a addition to like one like Cali represent like SoCal unity and like two like like a little bit of, like hardcore and like pop punk like vibe to like kind of just round everything off. So it's not just like 4 weirdo bands. Like there is like some semblance of like normality in that lineup as well.
And then Blind Equation was obviously to make sure that the few remaining trans girls in Chicago that weren't going to that show were going to be going to that show.
Yeah, I mean every band that we took out like on regional like was like it was really cool because like, we kind of like got to like run the gambit. Like we could bring a really like weird band like Blind Equation, or like we could like have like Fallen God with us in like Florida, so like I can like be in the pit every day and like to like a band that like might not fit the bill with everything else, but like as a band like I really love as like it's a really moshy metalcore band, and like the whole like regional thing is like a really cool like refreshing thing to do. Just because like us as like people we have so many different like fucking interests. Like a lot of people like think that because we play like sassy post-hardcore whatever that's like all we like, but I'm like I no like when I here at home I go almost exclusively to like hardcore shows or like beatdown shows because like that's like what I love to like experience live. So it's like nice to be able to like without like a full-on commitment to like a month where you only get to pick like 4 bands or whatever, to be able to be like, oh, like these are homies here, Ballista's playing with us in Texas, Fallen Gods here, Blind Equations here, Excite is playing with us in like the Northeast. Like it was really cool to like kind of like switch around and like see the homies.
Connie, thank you so much for joining
course.
me. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Cuddlepunk podcast. Where can people find you and where can people find the band other than upcoming in October in Las Vegas, the day before When We Were Young Fest? It will be Knocked Loose, Spanish Love Songs, and See You Space Cowboy for the 15-year anniversary show for Pure Noise Records. You can also see them coming up this October and November, opening for The Devil Wears Prada. Connie, where can people find you?
I mean, you can find me at those fucking shows, and you can find us on Instagram or YouTube or Spotify or a myriad of other places. Oh, and if you live in Europe, we'll be over in Europe with Devil Wears Prada as well in like February.
You can find links to all of that in the description down below. You can also find my link tree in the description down below, which will take you to not only all of my social media, but you can also find links to every video and audio version of the Cuddlepunk podcast, every episode that you could find. If you like this episode, please leave a like, please subscribe. If you really, really liked it, you can subscribe to the Cuddlepunk Podcast Patreon. That is patreon.com/the Cuddlepunk Podcast. The logo for the Cuddlepunk podcast is done by Lauren Young. You can find her Instagram in the description down below. The theme song for the Cuddlepunk podcast is Lose a Turn by Modify, who, as I said last week, just released Artificial Spine with her band Split Jaw. You can see Split Jaw in Chicago, October 6th. It's their debut show. It's going to be amazing. Tickets for that will be in the description down below. Connie Sgarbossa, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Cuddlepunk podcast. This was unbelievable. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.